On today's sponsored XT250 video, we're going to be looking at relocating our rear turn signals so they work with hard panniers on our SU racks. In terms of mounting panniers onto our bike, we will have a clearance issue if we try to mount them using the turn signal relocation mounting brackets provided by happytrail.com. The pannier just ends up hitting the taillight and pretty much just won't be able to open properly without relocating the turn signals. So what I did is I used a piece of flat aluminum bar stock in order to extend the mounting hole for the turn signal brackets that were sent in the kit for me. In terms of where you can actually relocate your turn signals, this spot is just kind of a for instance. I ended up changing mine as soon as I found a better spot for them, but relocating your turn signals using the same method is pretty easy and straightforward. All you have to do is use a piece of bar stock to move your turn signals back a little bit further or higher up, depending on what your situation is and depending on what panniers or soft luggage you're using. So Happy Trail actually sent plenty of extra hardware from each of the kits that I was using, so I had an extra set to actually use to relocate this. This process of relocating your turn signals is going to require that you cut and solder your current turn signals. So in terms of removing them, go ahead and take a look at some of the earlier videos in which I removed the turn signals. But what you'll need to do is cut the connectors off and extend the actual turn signal wiring harness by a couple of inches. What I ended up doing was adding about a foot of extra cable and then just soldering that on. I ended up feeding them through the turn signal brackets and routing it to the factory wiring harness so I could trim it later. I use zip ties to secure the turn signal harness to the mounting brackets, and I mean it's a pretty easy way to do things, and it's cheap and effective, and it doesn't look too bad when you end up doing it. I only used a couple of zip ties in order to get everything situated, just so it wouldn't pull too tight when I was doing some soldering on the front end. So what you'll want to do is feed all of your wires through the relocating brackets and then tighten the turn signal nut and slip the dust cover boot on top of the actual bolt there. Once again, I ended up changing the turn signal mounting brackets in terms of their location and how they're oriented, but I was doing this without instructions because Happy Trail does not actually send you instructions on how to do this. They just say you have to relocate your turn signals in order to get proper clearance. Moving forward on the harness, what we actually do is we cut off any of that excess and we end up soldering that connection to our factory wiring harness and securing it properly using electrical solder and electrical tape. Of course, you should be using shrink wrap, but in terms of what I had available to me at the time, I just ended up using some electrical tape. When I finished soldering all of the connectors to the extended wires, I tucked the wires and connectors through the frame so it ended up being nice and neat. If I were to do this project again, of course I would use the proper shrink wrap and connector types, but of course this is good enough and it's still working right now. So now that everything was tucked, I went ahead and secured everything using extra zip ties and then trimmed the zip ties flush. Reinstalling the factory plastics was pretty easy. You just have to make sure that the back end is secured, the front end actually pushes into the rubber grommet, and the middle section is secured using an Allen head bolt. Replacing your seat is simple. You just make sure the front is hooked in to its plastic hook on the tank, and then re-bolt the seat to the subframe using the two 10mm bolts. At this point, you should have your turn signals relocated to a different position. That allows for proper clearance depending on what saddlebags or panniers you're using. With the way that I did things in this video, it's pretty easy to adjust the turn signals. However, you do have to get them to fit given your circumstances. And make sure you stay tuned for the next episode in the Happy Trail sponsored series. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.